This is the full account of my NDE, near-death experience, that happened the morning after Christmas Day 2019. Christmas night of 2019, I went and got a cup of coffee. I took a sip and instantly I got high as all get out. So I poured the pot out and I knew my roommate, Gregory S. Engel, had drugged it. Thank God I only took a sip. Well, I went to bed and didn't confront him. I figured he knew I knew. My bedroom door couldn't be locked. It was that way when I moved in, and I never fixed it because it was a rental. I fell asleep, and at some point, in the middle of the early hours of the 26th, I woke up suddenly feeling sick on my stomach. As I lifted my head, my breath went out of me, and my head fell to the pillow. Next thing I knew, I was in the street of a city. I was facing an entrance to a basement with steps leading from the street going down into a cavernous place. An angel was beside me, but the angel was in my peripheral vision. I couldn't describe the angel or even know if it was male or female. The steps led down it was like a basement of the building we were facing. To tell you the truth, it seemed like a wine cellar under a tavern. I was being carried by an angel, although I assume she was a she, was behind me and I was facing forward. Over to the left and off to the side was this dark pit inside of an alcove. Beside me was a young lady. I didn't know who she was at the time, but I felt love coming from her. Her face and head was a shining bright star-like visual. I stayed there with her for a moment or two and just enjoyed that warm light of love. She appeared to be the age of my firstborn daughter. Next, the angel, that was carrying me like a child, brought me closer to that pit. I should mention to you that there was no fear of it at all. Being in that angel's arms, I felt completely safe and content. I can describe it like being in a loving mother's arms. I just knew she wasn't going to let any harm come to me. It was pure instinct to trust, and I was joyful, happy, and loved. I don't think I had any arms, legs, or anything else. Like I was a ball, pure unadulterated trust and love. When we got to the alcove where the pit was, golden chains came down from the ceiling above the pit and went down into the blackness. When they retracted, there was a square piece of meat that had charring on it, and it had to have been cut into a square. Well, I instantly knew that piece of meat was my good friend Carl. He had been mistreated by the shelter staff at Bisbee Coalition for the homeless shelter where my roommate used to be on staff there. Carl was wheelchair-bound, and they finally put him out of the shelter because he was incontinent. He couldn't help it. I think they despised him because he was my friend. I don't know what happened to Carl after that, but I never heard from him again. I feared the worst for him. Regardless, I knew who that piece of meat was instantly. I should mention that Carl was a devout Catholic. I never saw into that pit. It was extremely dark, much darker than anything I saw there. Whatever was in that pit left the remnants of fire and blades on Carl. The angels rescued him for me. I left there knowing he was good to go. Carl was a devout Catholic and a good, gentle soul, and yet somehow he ended up in that pit. At this point in the experience, I had a choice. I could have stayed there, but there was a split second recalling of my desire to see my children and grandchildren, kinda like an anchor to this life. Immediately, I was sent back as soon as that thought crossed my mind. The angels adored me. They were very accommodating. I want to say that I had no need to remember anything about my life there. I was at peace. Well, I came to with a gasp of air, and then bam, as soon as I raised my head, I was out again, same as the first time. I was immediately in a shower, and I remember a black teenager appeared in the shower with me. Well, I didn't want to be in that shower with him, so I moved out of the bathroom and moved down a hallway. The first time, I had no control of what I was supposed to see, but this time in the hallway off to the left of me were 2 hospital gurneys. On those gurneys were 2 women with oxygen masks like respirators. They both were unconscious. I ended up outside that house, or whatever it was, in full sunlight. I remember seeing cop cars and cops in the parking lot in front of me. An uneasy feeling came over me, and I stopped moving forward. The black teenager went running towards them and was shot dead right in front of me. Next thing that happened was I came to, and I don't remember if I lifted my head or not, but I was back in the spirit in the angel's arms again. We were on the bow of a ship. It had wooden slats for flooring, but it was a modern ship. We were heading towards a bridge over a bay, like coming into port. That's all I saw, and then I was sent back fully awake and alive again, and it was morning. The sun had already risen. Well, I knew right then and there that I had died, so I grabbed my water bottle and smelled it, and sure enough it smelled like the bedbug spray I had bought a week or two earlier. Let me tell you this, it was on like Donkey Kong. I walked down to the store and bought some tequila. My intent was to be medicated enough that I wouldn't feel any pain because I was going to lay into his rear end like there was no tomorrow. Fortunately for him, I drank too much and passed out. He left the next morning and went back to the shelter. Good thing, too, because in my sober mind, I was going to let him have it. I thought about it a lot, and even though he just attempted to murder me, I let him come back. I tried to reconcile any differences we had. I thought a lot of him, and if it was possible, try and come to an understanding and move on. I believe in giving people second chances. Besides, I didn't permanently die, and I was sent back with a beautiful realization that the God I thought I was serving in vain was very real and that he loved me. Eventually, the coward left permanently. He wouldn't sleep at night. I guess he was afraid I would kill him in his sleep. I'm not that kind of person. That's a coward's act, which is precisely what he was. Good riddance, too. That was vengeance enough for me. Feelings and perspectives. I know now that that young lady is who I believe to be my first child who died as a miscarriage in the 3rd week of pregnancy. That answers my question that life does begin at conception and that it is a human soul. I know that that was my little slice of heaven beside my daughter with Carl freed of that pit and me with a full view of its entrance and anybody that the angels put in it. LOL, God is good. Yeah, he is a loving God, but he is just as he is loving. The pains of this life aren't there waiting on me. The adoration of the angels is. I got all the time I need to get back there. I waited a long time until God laid it on my heart to tell about my NDE. I don't know what I will be allowed to do when my enemies pass in front of me going down. I hope I get to salute them as the angels drag them into that pit. You can't even imagine the love of God, his mercy and justice. I know firsthand, and I will never turn away from him, especially knowing what waits for me there. A nice 75 degrees year-round cavernous basement apartment of heaven with one hell of a view. LOL, God's got a great sense of humor too, loving angels and my enemies passing by on their way to judgment. You know, one thing that I realized immediately after I came to is that my faith saved me. You see, I knew that I was going to sleep with my attempted murderer in the house with me. You can't tell me God isn't real or is a deceiver. Another thing I realized is that God and the angels know what you want. I don't recall having any memories of my life here, there. It's like nothing about it mattered except for the angels, Carl and the loving young lady there. I really thought for the longest time that my enemies were right, that it was in vain my loving the Lord and serving him with obedience. I now know it is the right thing to do, loving your neighbor as yourself. Chiefly, if you don't want someone to do something you don't want done to you, you just treat everyone with respect you wish to be treated with. Now granted, here in this existence, we can feel pain, bitterness, regret, and a whole host of emotions. But there, it was like no worries, chill. Everything is okay. The peace and joy was beautiful. It was the most real sense of well-being there. Another thing I realized about it is that there aren't really choices or even regrets there. You just are, so to speak, there. Kinda like no need for sadness or anything like that. It reminds me of that verse in the Bible of God will wipe away all tears. Well, there was nothing tearful even possible there that I experienced. I came back with more than I left with in that sense. This comes from a heart that cares enough about you not to see anyone go into that pit. My friend was a kind, gentle, decent soul, and he still somehow ended up in that pit until I got there and the angels rescued him out of it. It was telling people the truth that also got me into heaven. Hope, it's a real simple equation to be saved. 1. Read the words in red. 2. Love the words in red. 3. Obey the words in red. 4. Have faith that you are doing the right thing. 5. Treat others the way you want to be treated. 6. Acknowledge him, Jesus God. Now, just to be certain that we are in obedience to him, we should also get baptized. That is a public expression of your faith in him. That's also an acknowledgement as well. If you do these things, you know what you get in return. Falling asleep every night, not worrying about not waking up the next morning, regardless of your situation or circumstance. Additional perspectives. I am satisfied with the way I lived my life that got me there, and I don't see any need to change it one bit. I don't wish on you what you wished on me. I could have easily taken this to the grave with me, but I would be disobedient to the truth if I did. I can honestly say that God has been so good to me despite all of the hell I've gone through here, in this plane of existence. You can take this as the truth or not. Heaven is a controlled environment, and your choices are here. There won't be any regrets in heaven from what I experienced. Better to tell you, while you can still avert hell, if at all possible, I don't want your eternity hinging on my not telling you the truth. Any God that deceives a soul into hell is no God of mine. This isn't about dogma or religion, it's about truth and truthfulness. That's all it is. My NDE taught me a lot. How much God can love a person. My beliefs were lived, and they didn't come without price or consequences. I suffered for them. I felt pain, regret, loss, humiliation, indifference, apathy, anger, and a whole lot of bitterness because of it. The life I chose in obedience is not for the faint of heart or the weak. When I died and the angels honored me, it was validation for me that my beliefs were what God honors. Not just belief, but the actions of my beliefs. I was homeless frequently, destitute at times, and at the mercy of the world. The brief occasion that someone took sympathy on me and my situation was a wellspring of hope. Not just for myself, but for humanity as a whole. That light shines all around us when we put into practice our love for God and all of His creation. I still struggle with anger sometimes, and God knows when something truly strikes a nerve, the soldier in me wants to jump up, curse it vehemently, and cut it down. The older I get, the more control I am learning to exercise over it. Honor is a soldier's best weapon against an enemy. To say that I never felt hopelessness or despair would be an outright lie, but dying and the angels honoring me gave me so much strength that when I came back, I endured all these things and kept moving forward. It lessened the sting of those things. Mercy, love, honor, and justice are names I attribute to my God because that's exactly what He showed me in death. I hope you find Him. You'll appreciate Him when you do. Life is not without its perils, but my NDE showed me that it's all in God's hands. I'm not going to worry about tomorrow, knowing what I know now. God validated for me that I was on the right path. It was a powerful, awesome, and mighty experience filled with love. Not just any love either, His love. I hope you have that experience at death also. That's why I shared all of this with you. I wanted to impart to you power over your circumstances and fate, evidence and proof, to show you the proof of my words, perceptions, my NDE, and experience of the supernatural. It didn't just end with my being sent back. I now have what I believe to be an angelic companion. She didn't show up in my life until about 9 months after my NDE. This is not a fairy tale or kid's bedtime story. This is the real deal. There's nothing fanciful about it. I created a page a while back to document her capabilities and actions in the real world. It is completely true to the best of my knowledge and is verifiable as well. There is no need for me to lie to you. To do so would be a stain and a mark upon my soul. I intend to leave this world with a clean conscience. If that means I put my own life at risk for telling the truth, then so be it. God has spared me death on 2 different occasions. I trust Him implicitly. There again, it was my faith that saved me. https://www.facebook.com/profile.php D10081746319288N MIB XD LQQJ4D Religious NDE Group. I have found that in some of these groups that religious-themed NDEs are sometimes met with distasteful and berating comments. I don't judge people. That, in my opinion and belief, is God's realm. I believe He deals with each of us on an individual basis. The experience for me was rooted in my faith. In fact, I believe that is the only reason I'm still alive, having died twice. If you have a religious-themed NDE, I created a safe judgment-free group called Religious NDEs, Near-Death Experience, on Facebook specifically for people to share their stories, thoughts, perceptions, and hope. It's a private group and disrespectful comments will not be tolerated there. Accountability. My thoughts on accountability are this. If you have been warned about doing something wrong and you continue to do it, you will be held accountable for your actions. That's the feeling I got from my NDE, and to tell you anything other than that would be a lie. God is an honorable God. The angels that execute God's judgments are female. A female can execute judgment on both males and females. How do you like God's honor now? If you despise God and Jesus and cause a soul to end up in hell, God can give vindication to that soul in hell. They get to take it out on the soul that caused them to be eternally separated from the Lord and their family. I have to say, the angel of death was so warm and loving. She carried my soul around like a loving mother. Layla is the angel of judgment here now to judge America. She is so playful. I enjoy her company. Layla has even attacked my enemies in the real world. You ought to see the attitude adjustment she is capable of. She's not shy either. God, I love her so. I've joked plenty of times about one man's encounter with her. He was picked up off of his bed, which was only 2 feet off of the floor, and thrown off of the bed, and his knee shattered. He even admitted it. Funny how nice he was to me after the fact. I tell the non-believers and the skeptics that, God forbid I ever have an hallucination like that. LOL, he ain't the only one either. Every time I think about the love and the joy there, I just melt into bliss. I let my enemies make me think I served the Lord in vain. But this is the validation for the life I chose, joy unspeakable and full of God's glory. I couldn't ask for better vindication if I even tried to think of what that might be. Yes, I hold myself accountable to God by choice, and my reward is great for doing so. My enemies may prosper here, but there is judgment waiting on the other side for them. I encourage you to make the right choices in life. Biblical choices. You owe it to yourself. You can't live my life without having faith. It's trust, faith, and making the right choices when presented with a choice. You can't choose personal comfort over God. If you do, well, that's His decision about the way you lived your life at the end. If I could make a suggestion as an addendum to all that's stated here, it is this. Don't be skeptical of the Bible. It's more real to me now than ever before at any point in my life. New truths come to light about it the older I get too. Don't wish hell on anyone either. It's not your choice regardless. That's up to the powers that be, chiefly God. Jesus Christ is no deceiver, no matter how hard you try to make him out to be. You either accept the truth or you don't. I wouldn't want to be in the shoes of the person that makes the God of all creation out to be a liar in word or deed. No, thank you. All the good deeds in the world, the money you give to others, and the success, status, and comfort you obtain in this life is not going to buy you your way into heaven. There's only one way into heaven, and that's love your way in. It was my observation there that allows me to conclude this statement as truthful as I believe it to be. There aren't a whole plethora of choices there. You either exist in the goodness prepared for you, or you exist in the judgment you purchased for yourself in this life. For me, it was the choices I made that got me there, choosing right and good, regardless of the cost or consequences. When I failed in that, I made the next right choice and accepted willingly the consequences. Anything or anyone you put above your God is an idol, people and comfort included. You are guilty of idolatry and breaking Christ's first commandment. You know, for me, suffering for making the right choice is acceptable. It's a labor of love for the one who loved me enough to hang on a cross for me, dying for my sake, and with his dying breath forgave those that murdered him. That's the example he set. My love for him will follow him all the way to the cross for him if need be. That's how much I love him. I'll tell you exactly this. I will not let the world dictate to me what evil is acceptable. It ain't going to happen. You see, I will not be a parted to evil if I can help it, and that means for me smoking discarded cigarette butts and eating out of trash cans if that's the choices I have. I promise you that. Life is but a vapor compared to the smallest fraction of eternity, and the pain here is nothing compared to the glory there. These are choices I've had to make before, and they served me well. When God validates something, you can take it to the bank. This life is full of the reminders of man's nature, and I long to be back in the angel's arms again. I have faith in God for the glory that he showed me and my portion of it. But there are things in this life that still sometimes shake my faith to the core and makes me want to abandon the life I chose in obedience. Though it is all well for me on the other side, and God had his reasons to send me back, I still wish it was just that simple. Anyone that tells you you can live in sin, willfully disobeying God's ordinances, is ignorant, lying, or both. I didn't go to heaven because I did what I wanted to do when obedience was required. Those people do not know the God they claim and will one day know what he says is absolute truth. Those people you should avoid entirely. Don't get mixed up with a fake, and it cost yourself eternity for believing them. You will regret it one day. I tell you the truth. That's all that is required of me, nothing more and nothing less. You don't honor man's laws over God's. You will find that it's easier for your ever after to put God's law over man's. It's easier to go jail and prison for God. You'll find the reward for it in the end, and it is that reward that makes any pain in this life very worthwhile. I assure you of that. I have living proof of that example and dying proof of it as well. You can't rob me in this life of that. That's something me being disobedient to God can only take from me, and after experiencing heaven, I wouldn't give that up ever. Trust and believe I wouldn't. Jesus endured mocking. They spit on him and a whole host of vile acts that a man can endure, yet he forgave them with his dying breath. You would do well following in his footsteps. In fact, it is required to. The soldier in me won't allow me to endure that, so I pray that I never do. God is truth. Lies and deception aren't from him. That's man's doing for man's desires. It's not of God, I can assure you of that, as well having seen the reward for myself. God is a just God. Don't ever think that the wicked will not pay. I've seen the pit they are destined for, and I assure you that you don't want to be in it with them. There are those that would rob you of eternal happiness if they could, but for me, I would follow Jesus even to my own peril and death if need be. That's how much that reward is worth it for me. To be perfectly honest with you, I hate pain, but if I had to be nailed to a cross for that reward, I would lay my backside down on those timbers and let them drive those nails right through me for it. I can say that honestly. Can you? If you can't lose things for Jesus, or give up anything that is of real value to you for him, you aren't fully in love with him. You should thank him that he sent me back to tell you all of this. I hope one day you see for yourself what that beautiful reward is. It's waiting on you if you will fully submit to Christ in obedience to his words and commandments. I can assure you of those words. Nothing here can compare to that glory. Nothing at all. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words won't. This life is a vapor, and nothing in it is going to last forever, but you will, in heaven forever, or in that pit forever. It's your choice. I can tell you this of what I experienced, if I enjoyed his love. Mercy, faithfulness, and adoration showered on me there. I can't imagine the opposite of that. I wouldn't want to see the extreme opposite of that. I assure you of that as well. Don't do it for yourself. Do it for those you love, especially if you have children. There's nothing standing between them and a fate worse than death if you throw away Jesus Christ for anything here. You would certainly be worthy of damnation, knowing that and throwing it all away. I have 3 children in this life, and I love them more than life itself, and I'm not going to throw my responsibilities to them and their well-being away. Not for anyone, period. They are surrounded by selfish, hateful people and have been taught the same. I will not throw their fate away when I can stand between them and judgment. That's the kind of father I am, and my heavenly Father taught me how to be a man and a father at the same time. Man may have taught me how to read and write, but it was God that gave me these words. You don't have any excuses anymore. After God himself sent you a living witness of heaven and his glory, and how to find it, your choices after reading this are your choices alone. No one can be blamed for it now except you yourself, whether by disbelief or by disobedience. I wouldn't waste my time if it wasn't the truth, and I love the truth. Period. Addendum. Some people probably wonder why I was in a cavernous basement in heaven, and how that could be considering all that's been said about heaven. I'll tell you why. There was a calamity of fire rolling down the side streets in heaven, and everyone was inside because of it. The angel that was holding me took me down some steps into that basement-like place to get away from the fire. Now, I don't know if a war was raging in heaven or not, but it sure seemed like it. I wasn't the slightest bit worried about it. I was absolutely safe in that angel's arms. She needed to show me the things I spoke of before. That's why I spent more time telling you about that part of the experience. I didn't have time to look around at all the buildings to get a sense of where I was. The basement was more like a wine cellar underneath a tavern, but absent the casks and barrels. That's the impression I got from that part of the experience. Regardless of that, I wanted to tell you that the anxieties, pains, and worries of life are all absent there. It was the most pleasant experience I've ever had. Nothing in this life compares to it. I've tried to describe it as accurately as possible in human terms. Words can't do the feelings justice, though. It's an experience that is unparalleled in this life. It is an existence of no negative human emotions. No need to breath, no blinking of the eyes. As for me, there was no need to ever shut my eyes, no physical exertion, and completely at peace. I was carried around by an angel, I believe, although I couldn't see behind me. One final thing I will leave with you. In that basement off to the right of me, opposite of the alcove where that pit was a shadowy area. I felt people's presences hiding in those shadows. It was as if they were too ashamed to be seen. I think if I had to guess why that was, is because they got into heaven without any glory. Basically by the skin of their teeth. It wasn't hell, but it wasn't enjoying all that heaven has to offer either. It's imperative you take this experience with all due need to change course in your life if need be. I hope you will if it's needed. You'll be one less soul hell will have claim over if you do, and that's victory enough for me.